Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Mark Medley Show. I am thrilled to be with you once again, and today's episode could be considered a part 2 of the last episode, which was RESPECT, find out what it means to me. And today's episode is Love Yourself. And I'll tell you where that came from. Last week I was reading, as a matter of fact, on October the 7th out of Ian Levant Zant's book, Until Today. And I'm going to read some excerpts from that particular devotion that was on that day that made me think about actually putting this episode together. She says, when something is important to you, you take care of it. You make sure it is protected, nurtured, and that those things required for its maintenance are provided. Now I'm jumping around because I'm just hitting excerpts of the particular devotion for that day. The destruction of self-worth begins the moment we assign a value to something outside ourselves. Anytime you place a value on anything or anyone greater than the value you place on yourself, you are engaging in an unconscious form of suicide. Just for today and again tomorrow, make yourself the most important and valuable aspect of your life. In other words, for the next 2 days, think of you. Do you. Take care of you first. Now that's not the whole devotion for that particular day. I jumped around and I skipped around to hit the pertinent points of what I wanted to talk about during this episode, and that is loving ourselves or loving yourself. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being arrogant. I'm not talking about being cocky. I'm not talking about thinking you are all that and a bag of chips. I'm talking about a healthy self-esteem. I deal with children every day, and you would be amazed at how many children sit in my office and admit to me that they don't love themselves. And this phenomenon is not only with our children. Many of our adults do not love themselves. And the question becomes, if you don't love you, why would you expect anyone else to love you? If you don't love yourself, how would the expectation be that someone else ought to love you? Because you don't even love you. First and foremost, you need to love you. First and foremost, we need to love ourselves. I have absolutely no problem with letting folks know I love me some me. And when I say that, I'm not saying that in a cocky manner. I'm not saying that in an arrogant manner. I'm not saying that in a manner to be better than somebody else. I'm saying I have a healthy dose of self-esteem. And because I do, I am able to try to encourage and to help somebody else. If you don't love yourself, it's not a whole lot you can do for anybody else because you're struggling with the whole self-hatred thing. As a matter of fact, when you don't love yourself and you're dealing with self-hatred and self-destruction, you're destroying yourself. So there's no way in the world you can help someone else. Most likely, if you're dealing with the low self-esteem, you're dealing with some bitterness. You're dealing with dragging other people down to be miserable with you. So this whole thing of loving yourself, it's almost kind of like if you ever are on an airplane, whenever the flight attendants are giving you the instructions in the event of an emergency, they make it very clear, and it almost seems counterintuitive, but they make it very clear that if those oxygen masks drop down, you are to put on your mask first. Now, instinctively, especially if you're traveling with a baby or a child, instinctively, one might think, let me put the mask on the baby or the child first. But the flight attendants tell us, put your mask on first and then put the mask on the child or your neighbor or whomever. It's the same concept. We cannot really truly love anybody else if we don't love ourselves. We can't truly help anyone else unless we've gotten our mask on first. Because this is the premise behind the whole thing with the oxygen mask. While you're trying to now help someone else before you've helped yourself, there's a good chance you will pass out and not be able to help them or yourself. The same holds true with this whole thing of self-esteem. If your self-esteem is not healthy, you don't love you, you're going to act in ways that actually lash out against others instead of building others up. You're going to act in ways that are self-destructive, or as Iyanla says, and I'll have to turn back to the book or the page to read that particular piece again of exactly how she says it, because she put it in a really good way. She worded it very well whenever she said, "The destruction of self-worth begins the moment we assign a value to something outside ourselves." Anytime you place a value on anything or anyone greater than the value you place on yourself, you are engaging in an unconscious form of suicide. That's what we're talking about here with the oxygen mask falling in the plane. You're putting value greater on someone else than you put on yourself, and what will happen is we lose both of you. So I encourage anyone who has listened this far, anyone who is listening to the podcast, please start doing things for you. If you're a spouse, yes, your spouse is important. If you're a parent, yes, your child is important. Your job, yes, it is important. Your church activities, yes, they are important. Your hobbies, yes, they are important. But none of them should be placed above yourself. You need to start doing things for you. Things that bring you pleasure, things that bring you joy. Now, we're not talking about going to the other extreme, where the only thing you do is for self and you don't do anything for anybody else. What we're trying to get us to see is that the better we take care of ourselves, the more we can do to take care of someone else or to make life better for others. So I'm not saying don't do anything for anybody. What I'm saying is, if you're moping about or going about with a very low self-esteem, what I'm saying is consciously work on it. Consciously tell yourself positive affirmations. Constantly look in the mirror and tell yourself while you're brushing your teeth or washing your face in the morning, I love you. Say that to yourself in the mirror. I love me. I love you. As you're looking in the mirror at yourself, saying, I love you. It's going to be a great day today. We're going to do what we need to do to get it done. Things are always working out for me. That's one I like to use. I kind of roll that around even when things don't look like it. Even when things are looking bleak, I still want to kind of work that affirmation in. Things are always working out for me. And don't be ashamed to let folks know that you love you. Don't be ashamed to every now and again treat yourself to something that may seem extravagant. Don't be ashamed to every now and again, if you would rather go out to have something to eat than to cook, than to go out and do it, or to buy that pair of shoes. Now, I am not saying go out and buy 50 pair of shoes, unless you have it like that. But if every now and again you want to treat yourself to something, don't feel guilty about that. Have a healthy self-love. Have a healthy self-esteem. Because you cannot be successful hating yourself. You have to love who you are, however you are. If you're thin, love being thin. If you're full-figured, love being full-figured. If you're dark, love being dark. If you're light, love being light. If you're bald-headed, love being bald-headed. If you have a head full of hair, love having that head full of hair. And if there's some things you want to work on, say for example, if you want to sculpt the midsection or the muffin top or whatever you want to call it, if your dream is to have six-pack abs, then put a plan together to do that. Put an exercise and a diet plan to do that. But again, keep that with a healthy frame of mind, that you're doing that for you. You're not doing that for somebody else. You want to be more healthy. You want to lose the weight. You want to have the six pack. Not so much that you want to show off for somebody else, but that's what you want as a part of your self-esteem. There are too many people who are hating themselves and are therefore doing damage to not only themselves but to other people. That's why we'll hear a mass shooting. That's why we'll hear a mass killing. That's why we'll hear a murder-suicide, because the person is not happy with themselves and now they've taken somebody else out with them. So again, it would behoove all of us. We're not talking about being cocky. I can't emphasize that enough. We're not talking about being arrogant. We're not talking about being stuck up. We're not talking about turning your nose up at others. We're talking about being happy with who you are and putting yourself first every now and again. Probably more so now than again. But the point is, and Iyanla said it very well. As a matter of fact, the passage for that day for October 7th was, I will realize my own worth when I accept I am the most valuable thing that I have in life. Today I am devoted to caring for the most important and valuable part of my life, me. And that's from the book Until Today, Daily Devotions for Spiritual Growth and Peace of Mind. The author is Iyanla Vanzant. And this particular passage that I'm referring to was for October the 7th. So get out there and really consciously start working on building your self-esteem, particularly if it's low. If you have a healthy self-esteem, then maintain it. This is the Mark Medley Show, and we can be heard on just about all of the various platforms that distribute podcasts. Please feel free to follow or subscribe. You can also hear me live on Saturday mornings on gobrave.org, GOBRAVE.org. In the northern New Jersey area, FM radio, WP 88.7 FM. That's Saturday mornings at 6 o'clock a.m. I'm on the air live from 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. Again on gobrave.org and WP 88.7 FM. And of course, you can always hear me here on the Mark Medley Show. So let's get out there and make sure we are loving ourselves in a positive and healthy manner.